All right, now get performative, okay?
Okay.
Get as much in your head as possible.
Okay.
Uh, yeah, I was really interested in what exactly, how do the maternal wounds affect a person's relationship? And I know that you work particularly with women, which is
Mhm.
awesome. I work with men and women.
Right.
And I would love to know a little bit about just some of the more basic principles of understanding, just for even myself, because I'm
Yeah.
sure I could learn a little bit more about it.
Right. So what I was telling you before is that with the majority of my clients, I see mommy issues much more than daddy issues. People always assume that women who struggle in their relationships
It has to
is
do with
because
yeah.
an absent father or an abusive father, which yeah, sometimes that's true. A lot of the time what I see is women who weren't properly nurtured by their mothers.
Mhm.
Their mothers disapproved of them. Their mothers also didn't heal their own wounds and their own trauma. And it's very easy to look at your kids as a reflection of you. So if the kid is struggling, the mother's not there for them because the mother's interpreting it as, I'm a failure. I've failed. And I'm angry at my daughter for making me feel like a failure.
Yeah, interesting.
So I see that. I see also, I mean, as a mother, I can understand how easy it is to fall into this trap where, like if your child's behaving and she's being a good girl and she's being a good listener, you praise her, you give her more affection.
Mhm.
When she's melting down, when she's having big emotions she can't control, you're like, oh, just stop because it's an inconvenience for you. And a girl who grows up like that comes to internalize the idea that my emotions are too much. I need to
Mhm.
suppress how I'm feeling. I need to act this way. I have to be a good girl. I need to shut up. I need to make sure that my mom is happy. Like her needs matter more than
She'll become
mine.
disconnected from her body.
Absolutely.
When that happens, she becomes progressively more and more masculine behaviorally, or
Right.
she becomes incredibly transactional.
Yeah.
No, I really like that. It's a very, very powerful insight because I've been doing a lot. It's interesting that you came here at this point in my life. And so this is kind of the introduction. Welcome, Sabrina. You're a
Thank you.
established psychologist and you work with women. And that's
I'm a life coach, relationship
okay.
coach. Yeah.
God forbid. Don't let the establishments come for me.
Yeah.
And you focus on childhood traumas
I really
and how
focus.
it affects your relationships.
Yes, I
Yes.
focus on self-worth, and the reason so many women have low self-worth is because of their childhood trauma, so we always have to take it back to that place.
Mhm. Well, what I found to be interesting is that this is actually the point in my life where I'm integrating a lot of that into my practice too,
Mhm.
childhood traumas. But here's the thing that's interesting is that I have a different approach in it, which is I will actually lead the way of the thing that I teach. So I won't remove myself from the coaching. I like to immerse myself with my clients across the board.
Mhm.
And in fact, they get to see what it's like to struggle, lose your shit, enter a state of hopelessness, become angry, and ultimately have a space to express myself collectively. So I'm almost showing them exactly how they use it. It's a very interesting kind of,
Right.
I haven't seen it before, but it's been working for me and working for them. So we'll just keep doing that.
That's
But
amazing.
there seems to be something really interesting about what happens to women in how these maternal wounds affect both men and women,
Mhm.
because you've definitely seen it from the female perspective. And I
Yeah.
could describe from the male perspective
Yeah.
is that what I can see is, because I'm recognizing not just when you look at trauma, you have to look at the generational trauma in
Yeah.
relationship to it, because then it's no longer such a mystery, and then you probably won't have all of the shame around it. You'll
Right.
recognize that this has been around for about 4 generations, and I
Mhm.
think that that's exactly the furthest you can track something. 4 generations up before eventually it's like it could welcome to the human experience, right?
Yeah.
When is something just in your family, or when is it just something we all experience at some point in our life? And so yeah, I wanted to know a little bit more about what happens to when most people would think that as a woman, you would have, if you have relationship struggles, it's your relationship with men.
Mhm.
I would say about 99% of the time, it's the relationship with the mother. The relationship with men has an effect, but not in the way that they think it does. Like,
Right.
oh, I'm afraid of men. They're like this, they do that. And it's like,
Mhm.
well, most of your relationship about men just reminds you of your vulnerabilities as a woman and how connected you are to them.
Right.
And if you see your mother as fundamentally weak in the face of a man, don't even tell me what you feel about yourself.
Mhm.
And so that's of course what creates the deep insecurity around self-worth, because the self-worth conversation is, I think, ridiculous. There's people far less worthy who have far better relationships.
Right.
So it seems to me like a very established protective mechanism that I think a lot of coaches and psychologists fall for. That's not the conversation to have.
What's not the conversation to have?
Self-worth.
Yeah.
It's a product of integrating an individual with the things that make them feel worth less, weak, and scared.
Right. I mean, look, we all self-worth isn't something that you build, it's something that you uncover because we all come into this world
Mhm.
believing we're worthy of love. I see it with all my children. They don't feel good when they're babies, like take care of me, love me. And there's not a question of, oh, am I asking for too much? Am I too much? We all come into this world inherently worthy. But somewhere along the way in our childhood, we get the message that we are too much, that we're asking for too much, that there's something wrong with us, that we're defective. And children look at their parents as superheroes. They look at their parents like these people can do no wrong. They know everything. My kids think I'm like a freaking wizard. Like
Mhm.
I just know where everything is. I know how to do everything. I know the answer to every question. So when you're angry at a child, they're not mad at you. They're mad at themselves. There's something wrong with me. What did I do? When you yell at a child, they're not mad at you. They're mad at themselves, which is why I always apologize to my kids. I can't say I never yell at them, but if I do, I always apologize and I say it was my fault. It wasn't your fault. I
Mhm.
shouldn't have done that. So somewhere along the way, we get the message that I'm not worthy. I'm not enough. And some of us change our behaviors. We adapt. We have these behavioral adaptations in order to be what we think we're supposed to be
Yeah.
in order to be worthy of love. Some people become very perfectionistic. And this is where we can see women become very alpha, thinking, I just need to achieve, achieve, achieve. Maybe their household and there are certain cultures that are much more like this than others, where the emphasis is on achievement, on getting straight A's, on mastering certain musical instruments, even sport, anything, any accomplishments. Some women will become people pleasers. I see this a lot where everybody else's needs matter more. Some people will become the caretakers. Maybe they had a mother who was very emotionally fragile and she was the one responsible for helping her mom, being her mom's therapist when the father was off cheating on her or whatever it was
Yeah,
that he
that's
was
very
doing.
common. Yeah, the
Yeah,
enmeshment that's created with mothers and their
absolutely.
children.
And so we all develop this way of thinking, okay, I need to be this way and then I'll be worthy of love. And when we do this, we're
That perfect linear control manifestation. It's not real. It's like, if I do this, then love.
yeah,
Everyone
no.
would take that deal,
Right.
right?
Right.
Love is a guarantee for
Mm,
me doing whatever it is.
right.
I'll take it, right? It's just
And
very clever.
and it's not a guarantee because you're erasing yourself, you're abandoning yourself.
Mhm.
You're disavowing a whole other side of you. And this is where I don't know how you feel about Carl Jung. I love him. But this is where we get
Adore him.
into
Yeah.
all those shadow parts of ourselves. And this is why so many people are disconnected from themselves, disconnected from their emotions. And then they can't form meaningful connections because how can you really connect when you're not there?
It's not a connection.
No, not at all.
That's actually something so interesting because I'm noticing that I like to kind of look at it on a much larger scale and to see how people are affected through this. And I was saying that before that the wound that seems to be experienced on a much larger scale is a maternal wound.
Yeah.
And the maternal wound is inherently the eradication of beauty. And you get to experience a world without beauty. You don't have men aspiring to more. You have them aiming for the middle, or in fact, inherently looking to deconstruct or feed off the vulnerable.
Right.
But that's a game you lose over time, right? Because if you're inherently teaching people tactic, manipulation, and a way to get a means to an end, you only have a certain amount of time where you could play that out to where it works, right? But then eventually the much bigger picture arises, and it's kind of like this existential divine choke. And it's by the way, not in a suppressive sense, but to bring up what's being suppressed. So that's actually the whole point of a choke, not to submit something, but to get it to the point of a deep, much larger surrender. Because I was thinking about what a woman really experiences, and the awareness that a woman has of her own vulnerabilities that does create a lot of that overall neurotic experience, more or less, it's very, very clear for you. But in relationship to men, there's a much bigger awareness of your vulnerabilities. And it doesn't mean that you're weak, but I think that there's that connection to life that a woman has through her embodiment of it inspires men to achieve greatness. And you remove that from them, then you inherently get men thinking off their back foot, looking as a way to do the one thing you don't want, which is to make you a means to an end to feel a certain way about themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know it sounds like probably a lot of words, but what I'm really trying to formulate here is just what I've noticed across the board is that the feminine seems to be what allows there to be an evolution of man. And it was something you were talking about one of your children, which maybe God willing he will watch because he'll see that his mother has grown. And That's the greatest gift you can show your children, that your
Yeah.
parents evolve.
Yeah.
It means they're alive. You know, that's one of the hardest things about maturity. There's a rite of passage, like a necessary rebellion and a sobering of what your parents are.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have that. It gets a little goofy when you're 50 talking to your 80-year-old parents, if you're lucky, you know,
Right.
but you need that. So when I start recognizing a little bit about what's happening and with how important emotional needs are, and it seems to me like if you disconnect people from the feminine, and this isn't just for women, that's an immediate disconnect. That means that they'll immediately start behaving as a way to gain a means to an end. They will become disconnected from their own needs.
Right.
And they will inherently use themselves as transaction based in order to meet those needs. But they'll never meet those needs because they're not connected. So it's a game you always lose. It satisfies an immediate insecurity, right? But over a long period of time, you become deeply empty.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, you start talking about beauty, and it's like, well, you're not beauty, you're a weapon.
Oof.
And the children get to experience that.
Yeah.
And sure, you might have fooled a guy into thinking you're Bambi, but I swear to God, you're not Bambi. The children are going to experience something that will deeply disembody them.
Mm-hmm.
And you need people who are embodied. And of course, pain's going to be an absolute about life. You want to give them the tools necessary to do that.
Yeah.
And so when I kind of recognize a little bit more about how important emotional needs are, is that I don't feel that any of us are alone in relationship to that, because the maternal wound seems to be one that affects the existential relationship with life very deeply. The foundation of a person, like whether or not there is love, and that's something you have experienced or that is even possible for you. Those foundational holes are typically what happen under the emotionally disconnected or the overbearing one. But both of them are signs of poor emotional health. And so I wanted to ask you more clarity on how do you see emotions? What exactly is an emotional person? Like, what is your relationship with emotions? I know it's a more personal question.
Oh, wow. Wow. My relationship with emotions is a very complicated one because I think that growing
Don't tell me
up,
too much.
what?
Don't tell me too much.
Why?
No, I'm just teasing.
Oh.
It's a very complicated one. Yeah.
It's a complicated one because I think that, I mean, my parents, like all parents, did the best they could. I didn't really feel like my emotions when I was growing up were ever validated or understood. And so I developed the belief that,
Rock and mother?
yes,
Subtle term.
that I was just too much. And I also really hated the part of me that got emotional. It's funny that you asked that question because in my life, one of my biggest, I guess, struggles is that people always assume that I'm fine, that my life is perfect, that I have it all together, that I don't have any problems. And I would get so frustrated in my friendships and even early on in my marriage with my husband, because I'm like, I'm having a hard time. Like, why aren't you helping me? Why aren't you asking me like what if I'm okay? Like, why aren't you there for me? And people would always be like, what do you mean? Like, you're fine. Like, you're always fine. You always know what to do.
Yeah,
And
that's so powerful. All right.
yeah, well, that's because that was my behavioral adaptation. That is something that I developed
I have the same
because
thing.
I was so ashamed of having emotions. I thought emotions were weakness. That's something that I'm not saying that was the direct message I received growing up, but that's how I internalized it. Emotions are
just you.
bad. Don't show emotions.
Yeah.
And,
Mhm.
I suppressed them. And there were periods of time in my life, especially going through things that were very painful, like my first major heartbreak, being cheated on, where I just, again, internalized the belief I'm just not good enough. And I completely shut my emotions off and became completely dissociated. And it was almost like I felt like an emotional vampire. And
Is that when you started the partying?
when I started what? The
Is that when you
partying?
started the partying?
Oh, that's what the partying kicked into high gear at that point. I was young. I was 20. I was
Yeah.
21 when he and I broke up.
That's usually, you have to be disassociative to kind of experience that kind of behavior, even in
Right.
relationship to short-term sexual relationships.
Mm-hmm.
You have to develop a level of disassociation.
Right.
Like even now, I'm much more integrated. Like going to parties are noisy.
Yeah.
If I hit it off with a girl, I'm like, get out now.
Right.
She's like, why are you here? And it's like, I was here for the fundraiser, not the fucking party.
Right.
So can we talk outside? And that's, of
Yeah.
course, too intimate.
Too
'Cause they
intimate.
might hear each other.
Yeah. For me, it wasn't even about sexual encounter. It was really just about I need to feel good enough.
Of course.
I need the dopamine hit. So
had nothing to do with
I'm gonna
sex.
find the hottest guy in this room. I'm gonna make him ache for me. And once he's aching, done. Like
Well, then
there's
you
no
start
emotions.
recognizing that's the shadow right there.
Right?
Like when a person becomes disembodied from their own emotions, they have nothing relative to their actions. And that's actually really scary. You
Yeah.
only have your unconscious mechanisms, which are the parts you repress the most, that are the most unconscious and capable.
Yes.
So
Yes.
when you're going out, you're pretty much going on a psychosexual spree of
Yes.
validation.
Right.
And to think that that doesn't hurt the other men who are genuinely like, oh, you're cool. It's like you're not even interested in him. And the
No.
worst part would be is if you guys advanced it further into a relationship,
Right.
because you would actually find out who you are later.
Oh yeah, and that happened as well, where I had this, well, actually what would happen really was that I would either be very dissociated and cold and aloof, and men would go crazy for that. Not saying any woman should be this way. It wasn't
Yeah, but you're
healthy.
playing into his
It was right,
dysfunctions
exactly.
because
I was
you're
playing
also
into
dysfunctional. It's not so
exactly.
narcissistic and
No,
dangerous. Oof.
right. What would happen though is if I did catch feelings for the guy, there were certain guys, again, certain guys who activated certain subconscious elements within me, maybe represented a chance to heal some of these broken parts of me. Then it would go in the opposite direction. Intense anxiety, obsession, painting freaking castles in the clouds, like thinking, okay, I have to have this person. And if I don't have this person, then my everything's gonna just collapse. Like I'm going to implode. I need this person. So it would either be feeling nothing or feeling everything. And interestingly, this period of time, which was a very dark period of my history, is what led me into relationship coaching because I had gotten back in touch with the guy that broke me, the narcissist who cheated on me and like just completely shattered me and sent me into this
So you
space.
became a little bit like him after.
I suppose I did. And I couldn't get him out of my head for 2 years. Even though I was dating other guys, obviously, I was like making all these guys fall in love with me and having all these experiences, I decided to get back in touch with him. And in my 22-year-old brain, I was like, well, I'm going to like tell him about all these guys who are so obsessed with me. And then he's going to realize that I was really the prize
Well, you're going
and
to
that he missed out. And so obviously this did not make him want to get back together with me, but he was like, you should write about this and like share your experiences. Like these stories are really funny. These are really good. And he was like, you should write a book. And I was like, okay, I'll write a book. Like I love to write. And then he was like, but no one's ever heard of you. So you can't just write a book. You need to start a blog first. And there was no social media back then. We're old. So I was like, okay. And then we went into business together, me and the toxic ex who broke me. He built the site, did all the tech stuff. And he would also write this weekly Ask a Guy column. And I would edit it every week. And I thought that like this would give me more power, how to understand men, like how to understand how men think.
Yeah, you're trying to heal the wound with the person who broke it. That just shows you how disembodied you were.
It didn't work. Spoiler,
Yeah,
it didn't work.
doesn't
Didn't
work.
heal. It caused so many more
That's
problems.
wild.
But it did
Crazy.
bring so much to the surface for me. And then I started writing about my experiences and helping women. And then through helping women, I realized all the areas where I needed help. And it probably took a full decade. It wasn't until I was 29 that I really, really intensively.
Well, you could actually really help people at that point. You know, you
Yeah.
personally integrated that, which most coaches and psychologists don't do.
Yeah, I had
You
to
don't
live it.
need
That's,
to.
yeah.
Especially if you can avoid as much transference as possible and try to think that a book gives you credibility, especially when it comes to helping people. But what I found to be interesting from everything that you're sharing here is a little bit of, it seems to me that your son, that's the thing I want to talk about.
Which one?
The
I have
one that's
3.
really emotional.
Okay.
The word that you used is emotional. He's deeply
Yeah.
sensitive. What I found to be really interesting from my own experiences, especially having a deep maternal wound, that the part of you that you're the most like your son out of all of your children, but your ego, and this is typically what women who have a level of integration, that's just going to be natural. If
Yeah.
you didn't have children, they wouldn't teach you a lesson about yourself. And that's amazing that you do, which is, and at this point in your life too, and he's young.
Yeah.
Women will typically remove that from themselves because he is a man. And this is the next part of integration for women, which is you can do a lot of the foundational stuff in connecting to your maternal line. But to become the evolved woman, you need to be able to connect with that same experience through a man. And what seems to be really interesting is that even in my life, my mother had 5 sons.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm a total of 7 boys.
7 boys.
Only sons.
No sisters.
No sisters.
Oh my gosh.
Now, what's also really interesting is we're all really, really sensitive.
Interesting.
But what's also really interesting is that I don't think it's unique to me, but I think this is part of the evolution of mankind and the development of when I'm talking about a superior masculine, I'm talking about a masculine that could actually provide. Now, if a man's not connected to this, he will feel forever inadequate because it's a betrayal of a fundamental essence of who they are to provide. But to provide what?
Right.
Like, okay, you have money, you have a roof over your head, and now congratulations, you're a rock that reads a newspaper on the couch. And they will feel that way.
Yeah.
And there will be a deep, deep emptiness inherently, which is like, I don't feel I can be there for the people I love.
Right.
Well, let's start with you. And so I was noticing that you in general, but
Okay.
you can really see if a woman has healed this wound based off a relationship with her emotions. And it's typically through one particular characteristic. It's called compassion. And I believe that wounds manifest into behavioral characteristics.
Yeah.
So you can already tell somebody's maternal wound based off of what they lack, not what they intrinsically lack. It's there. You're gonna learn that. That's how much love you have for you. You're gonna learn that. And by learning that, you will bring up the inherent grief of not having it. And then the compound of taking conscious steps towards it with experiencing the emotions that surround the wound, you change the partners you attract.
Yeah.
You actually start recognizing a little bit of the space that you can build in your family. And I think this is going to take a lot of courageous individuals to learn how to initiate with their heart, because that's going to change the world. We're talking about, not having to have people be misrepresented by childhood traumas. I think that this is a current conversation now. It might not be the conversation in the future if we do something about it.
Right. Right. Wow. Well, I will say that right now, I definitely have a much healthier relationship to my emotions, but I do also find them to be inconvenient,
I agree.
which is interesting because my husband, who I married, is the opposite of me. He's actually very much very emotionally healthy, actually. And I think that it was so important for me to marry someone like that and to see that modeled. He's definitely has a secure attachment style, which I feel like is pretty rare in this day and age. I had a disorganized. I say had. I don't really think it's operating at that level anymore.
Refresh me on this? So what are
Okay.
all the attachment styles?
So secure attachment style is they know that like they're able to communicate effectively, they're able to process their emotions effectively, they're able to love without feeling like they're being consumed. They
They
get
call that secure attachment.
yes, they have
Yeah.
secure. They have triggers, but like they know how to handle, they know how to manage them.
I noticed they just call it secure.
Secure, yeah, secure attachment. So there's
Secure attachment.
yeah.
So I like that because it's people like go way over their head when they realize that a healthy relationship involves an attachment.
Yes, and we all have attachment styles. So someone with a secure attachment style typically got the message growing up that like you're worthy of love, love is consistent, my love for you is unconditional. Okay, like good for them. So then there's 3 insecure attachment styles. We have 4 attachment styles. 1 is secure, the other 3 are all in the insecure category. The first is anxious. They typically grew up with caregivers who are very inconsistent. They didn't know who they were getting. Am I getting the mother that loves me or am I getting the mother that is annoyed by everything that I do? Sometimes their caregivers were there for them, sometimes they weren't. So they grew up to be hypervigilant, to always be on the lookout of, am I being abandoned? Now, as children, you have to realize that our survival depends on our parents. This isn't just a matter of like, oh, I want them to love me. It's I need them to love me because they have to take care of me. Because if they're not taking care of me, I'm going to die. Like I can't do anything for myself.
Yeah, don't stress about your attachment style. It got you here.
So, I mean, we grow up in adulthood feeling like it's our survival on the line when obviously it's not as adults. Fine. So that's anxious. Then we have avoidant. They're ones that had parents who were not there for them. Again, also could be inconsistent, but their parents were either very hypercritical or just completely emotionally not there, had emotional
this
walls
one?
up. This is avoidant. So this is the second type of insecure
Okay,
attachment
so one
style.
was anxious.
One was anxious.
Now
Now
this
we're
is
on
avoidant.
avoidant.
Yeah.
They grew up believing I can't rely on anyone. I have to only rely on myself. And it's dangerous to trust other people. Relationships are either going to consume me or if someone sees the real me, they're going to abandon me. So
Yeah, I fit in that category.
most men do, and most women
Yeah.
fit in the anxious. Then you have the disorganized. They're both anxious and avoidant. So they are scared to be alone, but they also feel scared when they're with someone else. The relationships are very chaotic. On the one hand, they feel they're avoidant in that they're like, no, don't get too close to me. Like, this is too much. This is overwhelming. I don't like vulnerability. But at the same time, if they feel like they're being abandoned, that really feels very threatening to them. So they're kind of all over the place. And I was in that category for a long
Disorganized?
time. Disorganized. Yeah. I think I've moved more to secure/avoidant instead of disorganized through my relationship with my husband, which has been very healing. And having somebody who has that secure attachment style was a good anchor for me because I had never really seen anybody like that before. But through that, it's been much more helpful for me because he kind of forces me to face my emotions more rather than just shutting them off, which isn't healthy for me. I had so many health issues throughout my 20s because
Very
I was
sensitive.
suppressing my emotions. And it comes out as autoimmune disease. It comes out, a lot of people have gut issues. Even
Yeah,
people I
gut
know,
issues, hair, skin.
gut issues,
Yes.
chronic migraines. I know so many, everybody, I think almost everyone I know either has chronic stomach issues or chronic headaches of unknown origin. What then like the doctors will just like slap on like, oh, it's IBS. Anybody with it who has like some
Yeah,
gut
stop
issues.
going to your head as a way to feel safe from what you're experiencing in your body and stop
Exactly.
swallowing your emotions. It's interesting how like I have that too. So
Mhm.
your son is
Yeah.
exactly like me.
Right.
Exactly like me. And I know what it's like to be rejected for that. And
Right.
and it's typically interesting how it manifests
But
for
we
me.
don't reject him for that. I'm very conscious of that. If anything, like the thing that's
It's
so
hard not to feel like you need to solve them.
right. And this is where, I mean, people always say parenting is so hard. And this is where it gets so hard. I think, especially because I'm so conscious of all the ways you can screw up a child. And I'm trying so hard. And each kid needs such different things because they are all so different.
Hmm.
And more than anything else, I think you were asking earlier about the maternal wound and even the paternal wound. It's the same thing. It's this rejection of who you are because the
Hmm.
way the child is inconvenient for me. And I think that well, I'm older than you, but I think especially my generation of parents, they had no tolerance for that. They were not a generation that was about growth. Nobody went to therapy. They just felt stressed. They didn't know how to process their emotions. And if their kids were acting in a way that felt disappointing or
Threatened.
frustrating or threatening, especially when a kid is making you feel like a failure, it's triggering.
Of course, if
Yeah,
I can't do anything to help my son through whatever this is that be perceivably is a
yeah.
problem, then I'm not good at this, and I don't like to feel that way. And
Yes.
so
Yes.
that's in its own way a form of availability. But
Right.
again, when we talk about your parents, which are my parents, they're the same age.
Hmm.
My parents are in their 70s.
Oh, your parents are older than my
Yeah.
parents. Yeah.
And I think that's exactly why I have kind of like an interestingly generational understanding. I'm 26, but I have a
Right.
much deeper understanding of the people 25 years older than me.
Yeah.
And of course, just the people younger than me, just because I'm closer to them.
Right.
But I really understand it has to do with a fundamental belief about life in relationship to these experiences. Because even when I've been able to understand through my own childhood traumas, which is what I've been doing a lot of work on, is that if you can bring them up, which is already inherently going to make you feel weak,
Hmm.
you're going to be doing the one thing that you need most as a very sensitive person. And I feel like if anybody likes my stuff, it's because they're deeply sensitive too.
Yeah.
And I've developed a unique ability to communicate with that sensitivity to where it doesn't look overbearing. But it would be a complete total lie if I didn't tell you I was like this with my emotions and my sensitivity. Because the truth is I have a hard time with it sometimes, where when I look around me, I don't see a world that supports that kind of openness.
Right.
I see one that requires me to be incredibly brave with it because I'm realizing that's the truest form of communication. And when I started this work, my stuff used to be really different. It used to be very tactical oriented. How to get the girl. This is how,
Mm-hmm.
if you're doing this as a girl, you'll turn them off as a guy.
Right.
And it was an understanding of dysfunctions, but it was like it was the means to an end in a world that needed something to be a means for something more, an evolution.
Hmm.
And it was like, for me, it was very difficult to do that until I started developing an autoimmune disease.
Right.
And my stomach became just like an absolute place of hell.
Yeah.
I started losing hair
Wow.
because of alopecia.
Oh my gosh.
And then I also started noticing I was hitting these like depressive cycles that I would cope through. They're like a
Yeah.
manic depressive
Yeah.
of like completely bury these experiences in isolation, come back into another breakthrough mentality. And I was like, oh my God, I've seen this before. I was like, where have I seen that? It's like, oh, it's in my mom.
Right.
And then there's a certain point where I was like, I need help. And when I opened up to help, I opened up to a possibility of everything that I was exposed to being inherently anti emotions. And like, as if that's not anti intimate relationships, because what a lot of people live with is a delusion. It's a big delusion that your parents are satisfied.
Hmm.
Remember, you're aiming towards the bottom and they're posing it to you like it's the top. And they're utilizing certain things like gratitude as a way for you to diminish your understanding of true gratitude, which is I want more.
Right.
If you were really grateful, that's exactly how you would be because you'd be able to receive that. And that's the whole thing about gratitude. It's like, I can receive these things, or else I wouldn't be grateful. And I think that's true for anybody who receives anything and has realized you can't receive it. They typically reject it.
Right.
So the conversations of emotions for me in relationship to childhood traumas have been one that are a much deeper question. I think an existential question allows you to internalize it. And I think that without it, emotions become utilitarian. And to see that now you can look at it on a much larger scale. If there's a cosmic feminine wound, I think that's in relationship to birth control after a world war.
Right.
Them being aware of a cosmic vulnerability in relationship to ideology is that we have to find a way to protect ourselves from these things. Let's adopt them on our own, right? And so that's exactly what creates it, right? Like, you try running from your vulnerabilities, you create it in a psychological aspect, right? Okay, great, congratulations, no world wars anymore. But as human beings, we're completely and totally disconnected from one another. And think about that kind of warfare, psychological warfare. And when people don't really understand that until they're in an intimate relationship, until every single part of themselves of who they are has been completely assassinated from a person that has consistently told them, I love you. And so we have to go back to establish and understand what exactly are emotions. Like, what are we really talking about here? And what does it mean to be a woman that's connected to them? Will allow men to understand the importance of being connected with themselves, because then they could actually meet the needs of the woman. Like, our needs are running deeper because our consciousness is expanding. If consciousness is expanding, and so is our sensitivity. Sensitivity is a part of an elevated consciousness. And it's interesting that we see the people that have that the most are the biggest problems to solve, when they are the people that will solve the problems.
Right. Right. I think that you're hitting on a really common misconception that women have of men, which is they're not emotional, or they compartmentalize their emotions. They put their emotions in a box, which isn't true at all.
Yeah, well, just like you.
Men have huge emotions. I know men have huge emotions, but unfortunately, I think most men don't know how to process their emotions in a healthy way. Something that I see a
What do you mean
lot.
by that?
So, okay, for example, what I see a lot is for the women that I work with that are, I'd say 45 and above, divorced, they've already been married with kids, now they're back in the dating world. The guys they're dating are also typically divorced. And a lot of these men,
That's
like in like the 50 category,
so
right?
we're
Like
dealing with women in their 40s?
we're talking about women like, yeah, like we'll say like 45 and up, like
Okay,
40, late 40s, 50s, sometimes early 60s.
nice.
They're dating men who are divorced. Most of the divorces are messy, as divorces often will be. And these men are so emotionally shut down and so terrified to open up to another woman, and carry so much guilt over their kids, because a lot of the time the men lose a lot of access to the children in a divorce.
Yeah.
The woman gets primary custody. So they're carrying a lot of shame, a lot of guilt. They're unable to really be good partners unless some men are evolved enough to recognize that and go seek help. But men in that age range, I find,
Generationally don't really seek to go ahead and do that. To be honest
yeah.
with you, I'm kind of a piece of shit, but like, I couldn't give a fuck about old people. And I say that honestly because
Oh my God. Okay.
it's boring. It's predictable.
It's
It's
boring.
it's so boring.
Right.
It's a reason why I fall to sleep. And I have like a rule in life. Like, I just,
Do you have an age
if
cutoff?
I'm falling asleep in the middle of a conversation, that person lacks youth. You could be 85 years old. My grandmother was one of those women. She was
Right.
sophisticated son of
Uh-huh.
a bitch. She was an engaging person to be around.
Yeah.
And so when I'm talking about old people, I'm talking about like, there's like a determinism about how life is that cuts the person's ability to be them. So they're not existing as them. They're like the accumulation of the survival mechanisms and all
Right.
the adapted behavioral characteristics. So of course it's boring.
Right.
And it's like, oh, you want to like, you have a worldview. I think it typically comes with what happens when you have an unintegrated, like, certain things about life need to be unclear. And that means you're healthy if they're unclear, like
Mhm.
an unknown amount of what you can or cannot experience.
Right.
And what I've often noticed is that I think the older generation is completely disconnected from the younger generation in this regard, because they have completely removed themselves from the younger generation as having any of those things. And so it's kind of like a cognitive dissonance of like, how are my grandkids like? They strayed from the Bible, right? And they're like, no, 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 no. All of those things that you use the Bible for,
Right.
they are completely weak in the face of.
Okay.
So using the old framework about how life was, remove them from being able to understand how this is all of the parts of themselves that they've repressed in the future generation.
Mm.
And so when they start telling me about their worldview, it's like I could do a one-on-one on making you feel stupid, but I would
Okay.
much rather have less of those people speaking for the younger generation.
Okay, fine. I hear
So
what you're saying.
that's where my
I was
fight
using
comes
just
from.
an example in
Yeah.
terms of men and their emotions, but fine. We'll talk about just men in
Such a
general.
prick, huh?
No, it's okay. I understand what you're getting at here.
I'm sure everybody feels the same way. It's because sometimes your parents are the older generation. You know
Okay,
what I'm
all
saying?
this is making me think of is the first time we Zoomed, like when you reached out to me a
Mhm.
while back. I think I had just had my fourth baby and I was like, I'm not coming to California anytime soon. But I just remember you were yawning the entire time. So was I an old person putting you to sleep? And you kept saying,
No.
you're like, this is a good thing that I'm
It's a
yawning
good
so
thing.
much.
I look, to be honest, a
Okay.
lot of this is what I've noticed, that
Okay.
I've repressed a lot of my sensitivity growing up and a lot of my emotions, and my yawning is me coming back to my body. I've been deeply
Oh,
depressed for a long time.
right.
And the reason why I don't say that, because I think people's understanding of depression is it can be misunderstood, but I
Yeah.
just say it because the truth is I am, and I need to connect with that.
Yeah.
I've deeply depressed a lot of feelings and how deeply I feel. And when I notice that I can get connected to my emotions, I start to yawn, because at the time my body's exhausted. But I think you'd really like this,
Yeah.
that over being able to take 3 to 4 hour naps nearly every day for the last year, I've noticed I'm not exhausted.
Oh my gosh, don't say that to an exhausted mother of four. That sounds
Well,
like
that's the whole
heaven.
thing. She's probably deeply suppressing a lot of these feelings, which is another
Yeah.
component which I needed to say, which is
Yeah.
for fuck's sake, if you're going to be a mother of four without a community, you're fucked.
What do you mean by community? Like your
You,
village? Like your
you
parents?
need, like, women need to be around other women when doing women things. This is
Yeah.
also true for men.
Right.
What has happened? You're going to meet the needs of all of your different kind of kids when you yourself are trying to figure out what's your left hand and your right hand.
Right.
Like, what, we're also not going to stop reproducing, because that's a ridiculous idea.
Right.
But you remove women from each other by inherently getting them to cater to the lowest common denominator because of insecurities they don't want to face.
Right.
So if there isn't an inherent understanding of the value of femininity, then women will sell that out, and men will actually market that. They'll be like, hey, any women I can go ahead and manipulate because they're going to sell out this whole thing, I'll sell you the whole narrative that you can be safe. Work for me, or do this whole thing of what I want you to do. And inherently you make that woman weak, because she becomes another pawn to a man that's disembodied from his purpose, which is to protect women.
That's so true.
Yeah.
And this is why so many women who are mothers are so freaking miserable. Miserable.
Yeah.
And this is why the kids grow up so unhappy and miserable.
And then they go, I don't want to be miserable like mom.
Right.
And then they confuse human suffering from maternal suffering. I
Yeah.
promise you. That's where the big confusions happen, where when people go, do you want to get married? And I think a lot of people go, yeah, if I met the right person, which is
Yeah.
typically what you hear.
Right.
But what you're going to get is the person that you know. And that's going to be through your development. And that's going to be stored in your nervous system. And no matter what kind of ideas and where you look to escape, if you don't start learning how to process and experiencing your emotions and creating space for that, you will only have what's in your body. You will just keep attracting that. So what I find to be interesting, because you're actually more grounded with your conversations, which is great. And I'm like fucking in Narnia. There's an important evolution for mankind in relationship to emotions, and it's becoming very, very clear on how intimate relationships are looking, is that it's clearly not a solution when your parents grow up and they say, my parents were miserable. And the best they got to say is, I did it for you. But
Yeah.
don't do that.
Mm-mm.
And also when you go, hey, but look at what the society is presenting. It's a bunch of single people who have way too much money for plastic surgery, right? Like, as if that's any better. But you don't want whatever that is.
Right.
And that's kind of what I was noticing, is that I think there's a much larger developmental trauma. And I think that it's not just in relationship to how parents treat children. I think that's cosmic. That's a cosmic question. That's a divine question. Mom and dad are existential understanding of God. And you're going to need that. And you could say that's love. So you're going to need to work that through. But then there's the other traumas that happen, the religious traumas, the traditional romanticization. As somebody who believes in the traditional home, not in the traditional sense. And then I think even what's happening even more is that I think more and more people don't look to a family. And I think that's also part of a culture. And you have a compound of those things compounded with already a difficult enough developmental trauma in relationship to how you interact with people. I think that's what makes intimate relationships incredibly, incredibly noisy.
Yeah.
Is because you're dealing with many different variables that make people reject the fundamental essence of men and women coming together.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I think that I mean, there's so many layers to it, to everything that you're saying. But yeah, I see that play out all the time. I think that both sides are pretty emotionally repressed. I think that both sides, okay, you know what's interesting? When I started out my career, a lot of my content was writing about male behavior because I
Yeah,
thought
yeah,
if we
yeah.
can
That'll cater
understand,
to the internet.
well, at the time it did,
Mhm.
because at the time women were really interested, and I would talk a lot about what a man needs in order to feel loved, in order to feel inspired, and the power that a woman has to bring out the best from her man. And back then, this is the early 2010s, people were so receptive. I think my article on like 5 things every woman needs to know about men. I
Well, you
mean,
don't hate men.
no, I don't hate men. I love
You're
men.
obsessed with men.
I'm very I connect with men a lot. I think that maybe it's because I've been burned by women way more than I've been burned by men. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, but like I said, I think that's a good thing to have that
Right.
drive, you know? And I
Right.
also think that men meet a lot of your psychological insecurities. So that
Right.
creates the obsession. That's what I was saying.
Yeah, I totally see what you're saying. And I'm gonna get to where that came from as well. But anyway, so when I would create that content, there was such a desire for it. I even wrote my first book was 10 Things Every Woman Needs to Know About Men. But now
How do you
what
write books?
I love writing books.
Dude, fucking I
I
I
could do
love
it.
writing, but like a book,
It's
like
so much
what?
work. Oh my God, so much work.
That
But
sounds
like
like exhausting.
it's exhausting, but for me, there's just things that like all of us were put in this world to do something. You are a master at words and understanding and taking super existential concepts and like articulating them.
Oh, that's fucking
No, you
compliment of the
are.
year.
You're
Thank
great.
you. Thank you.
I was put
Yeah.
here. I was not put here to talk. It's a struggle for me to talk. I'm
No,
struggling
you're
right
doing
now.
so good.
And this is so hard for
No,
me.
you're actually
But
helping me make sense for once, you
oh,
know? I
good.
feel like I'm crazy.
I'm so glad I can help you make sense.
Yeah.
I was put here to write a book, to write. That's what I love to do. But yes, it's extremely difficult, especially with self-help books. You have to organize it in the right way. You have to introduce things in the right order. And but that book was
Maybe
easy.
you could help me out in the future.
I would love to.
Yeah, I need
That
help.
was easy because it was just 10 things everyone needs to know about men. People loved it. Now,
Gobble, gobble.
when I talk about this is what your man needs in a relationship, the comments are, I don't give a shit what he needs. I don't care. Why can't he give me what I need? There's so much anger
Yeah.
and so much hurt on both sides, men and women, that this is not helping anyone. And women think that it's okay to go out and date, say men are all avoidance or men are all narcissists. Everybody says my narcissistic ex. Like that word is significant, especially to
Yeah, don't
people
just go
who've
dropping that
ever
like crazy.
been in a relationship with a narcissist. You're undermining our experience.
Unless you're willing to own up to it, throw it
Right.
out.
Right, exactly. Or you have to actually understand what it means. You have to actually study. It's a personality disorder. It doesn't mean not every guy that ghosts you was a narcissist. Not every guy that cheats on you was a narcissist. Not every guy that was a jerk is a narcissist. Anyway, we're so quick to throw out these labels and all men are jerks. But at the same time, like, okay, so you want to find love. You're dating men, but you think all men are jerks. Would you want to go out with a man who thinks all women are crazy, all women are bitches? Like, no, you would say he's a misogynist. And you, of course, nobody would want to date a man like
Well,
that.
he wouldn't be that discreet about it if he
Right.
could, you know? He'd be a little more charming.
Yeah, exactly. But
Really
you would know, we
fundamental
feel
terror and
that.
pain and subtle hatred. But I think the opposite sex really mirrors the internal relationship deepest.
Right.
Because the ego is usually most involved around that. Like,
Yeah.
fucking feminine my ass. Let me just separate myself from all things feminine. You mean
Right.
like from all things that allow you to become a man? You say it like that, right? And the same thing goes for women. I notice what really challenges women with their emotions is their body.
In what way?
So when a woman looks to protect herself, she's going to go to her head, and I think this is going to be true even for men. And by the way, that's dangerous because then you're kind of you can't really connect to people. People become a means to an end in order for you to feel connected to yourself. So that immediately means that you're functioning from a psychotic place. And
You said that
inherently-
very fast, but that was very beautiful.
oh,
People,
well, wonderful.
yeah. Wait,
Great.
how did you say that again? People connect to others because they're trying to connect to themselves?
Yeah, people utilize their relationships as a way to feel connected to themselves. And so that's what happens to a disembodied person. Because if they're disembodied, that means that their interests are unconscious. And that's a very dangerous person because then they have subtle expectations from you. But if you're insecure enough to not address that, which is going to be true for somebody who has deep abandonment wounds, myself included, you're like, well, this fucking great, hand in hand, she's everything I want her to be, right? But the more sensitive you become as a man, you will start recognizing, like, dude, why are you fucking touching me? This is poisonous touch. And you might even notice that you can actually be really aware of how people utilize things like touch and even their body.
Right.
And even in my recent past, I've noticed certain women, they'll get naked, and I'm like, what? Do you see what you're doing? Like,
They'll just get naked out of nowhere?
It's actually really interesting is that wherever there's emotions, there's no nudity. But wherever there's nudity, there's no emotions.
Okay.
Now, that's a split. You can see that
Okay.
in sexuality. Sex really anchors people to how they express themselves emotionally.
Okay.
But for women, what I often noticed is that for When it comes to topics like emotions, we experience emotions where?
We experience emotions where, I mean, like everywhere. Like you experience emotions
In
in your
your
body.
body, in your
Yeah.
body, right?
Yeah.
And now the next question about women in their body is their vulnerabilities in relationship to it. So that's an immediate conversation about sex,
Hmm.
reproductive vulnerabilities, male superior physicality, you being the object of desire, potentially conquering or even harm. So what you're really pushing a woman into, if you want to embody her, is fear. And then wherever that fear is also there's a lot of pain.
Yeah.
And so now there's a tremendous amount of need for support. And I think that women could interact and connect with their emotions at a very fast rate if they're willing to open up that door. Because I think there's an acceleration to the feminine that's
Right.
extraordinary. And it can go in both directions, to your detriment and your benefit.
Right.
But there's a deep, deep sense you need a lot of support for that, you know? And I think for women, it's very difficult to ask for that kind of support because I think that's what every woman wants to be for the man in their life, a support.
Right.
So it's kind of like the wound of not being supported disconnects you from the woman that you want to become that
Right.
can give support. So you're learning support through inherently the vulnerability of you being able to accept that you need it yourself. And so I don't think that there will be like healthy future relationships unless we're willing to incorporate a much deeper of its importance and meaning. Like we need that. Like
Yeah.
why the hell would you address childhood traumas? Like you will ruin your weekend. Are you sure you want to do that? You
Yeah.
might even challenge the relationship you're in. Are you sure you want to do that?
Yeah.
Like you might look back at your parents and go, those lying sons of bitches.
Mhm.
Like, well, there goes your Sunday morning, you know?
Right.
What's up, everyone? I hope you're enjoying the video. This is going to be for individuals that are seriously looking to work with me. I don't extend that to everyone because it's truly not for everyone. If this content is really challenging you in the way that you feel is best, that is bringing you closer to yourself, then take it in with my community or even in my private work with my clients. If this is you, you can go ahead and click the link below and my team will go ahead and reach out, and I'd love to see you on the other side. What is your understanding of that? Like, what is it that you tell your clients?
I mean, I think that we are all scared to do that inner work and face ourselves because we're scared we're going to fall into a black hole and never be able to climb out of it.
Yeah,
And it is scary, but
it's well said.
the thing is you can't outrun a rain cloud. You know, you could keep running, you're just going to exhaust yourself and you're not going to be able to do it. It's going to catch up with you eventually. And it's going to keep sabotaging your relationships. Even if you do end up in a relationship, it probably won't be a happy one. And then when you have kids, all new things are going to be opened up within you and all new triggers. So yeah, it's going to ruin your Sunday, but you know what? Like if you don't deal with it, it's going to ruin your life. So
That's
pick
really,
one.
really, really, really well said. It might ruin your Sunday, but if you don't deal with it, it'll ruin your life. I thought that
Exactly.
was beautiful.
Thank you.
So, I want to take it in the more personal. Let's go a little bit deeper with this because I think the childhood trauma thing seems to be what has shaped also a belief about life around our vulnerabilities, which is where we're going to have people come closest. And that's kind of what I've been recognizing. A little bit of like, there's levels to getting to childhood trauma. I don't think you could jump right into it. I think because people have too compelling stories about themselves in relationship to things that have happened to them, that they will project that onto the developmental trauma and they will remove themselves from being seen. So my understanding of childhood trauma and how you interact with it is, do you want to see yourself?
Yeah, that's the question.
And let's be real. You're going to see yourself when you were hurt most by the people you loved. You're
Oh,
going to feel
yeah.
rage, and if it's not rage, probably pain, and if it's pain, then a deep sadness and a grief that comes with that. So you're inviting a lot of negative emotion. And so what I was actually noticing is that if you can see how these things have affected you when you were a victim, then you could still see how you're being one now, and you could change that really quick. But you could also see where you're loved.
Yeah.
So it's not just a story of how you were destroyed. It's a story of how you were deeply loved. And that's sometimes hard to grasp because when it gets complicated, when you really love somebody, but they fucking hurt you.
Yes.
And then you're like, how do I work this out? So that's why it's interesting to me that certain things about emotional availability tends to give you even clarity in your ability to heal from a relationship where that was lacking.
Yeah.
And so when you're willing to look at yourself, you're willing to give yourself a voice with what you feel. And then these emotions no longer become a burden. They feel burdensome when we don't have a voice.
Yes, yes, yes. Oh my gosh, everything you said was beautiful. You need to clip that and make that into a reel because it's so important. I'll add to that that the experience of looking back on your childhood and the trauma It's painful, but it's also very empowering because unfortunately we can't go back in a magic time machine and have the perfect parents and do it all again. But what it's showing you is it's shining a light on where you needed them to be there for you, and you can give that to yourself now. And we don't even realize all the ways that we're replaying our childhood dynamics. For example, if you go for a job interview and you don't get the job and you're like, oh my God, I'm stupid, I'm such an idiot, I should have prepared more. Who's talking right now? Is that your voice? No, it's probably the voice of a very critical parent who always came down on you when you failed or didn't
Yeah, maybe
achieve
this will
something.
help.
And so instead, in that moment, what did my younger self need when she felt, she failed the test and she was really devastated? Did she need someone screaming at her like, "You're so stupid, why didn't you study hard?" No, she needed someone to say like, "It's okay. You're still smart and you'll work harder and you'll get it the next
That's
time."
compassion, right?
Yes.
Do you know, that's
Compassion.
actually really interesting that I've noticed that in my life, that I have that incredibly critical voice, and it's a
Yeah.
form of control.
Right.
Because if I can somehow maximize the love index, right, the linear dysfunction, because that's exactly what it is. Anything linear is usually dysfunction.
Mhm.
And if I can just get that down, or maybe learn this French, or get the right moves down in boxing. And by the way, it's small things, which is why I really recommend to people pick up the things that you want to do and see how you are to yourself in the face of them.
Yes.
And then you'll
Yes.
start realizing that this is functioning in the career path you want to take for your life, the relationship that you want to have. Like, you have that voice there. Start with something small that you like.
Yeah.
And there's something about the compassion, which is I've been really focusing on it because I have a deep maternal wound, and I've been focusing on how deeply that's affected me. That it's put me to a point where I realize that if I have that wound, I don't even know what compassion is.
Yeah.
And I could tell you, my intimate relationships turn into fucking blenders when the one thing I want is understanding.
Right.
And it's actually what I really been noticing, that I feel I wouldn't have understood before. Even if a girl gave me understanding, I would have been like, "What do you want? There's something you want here." She's like, "No,
Yeah.
like, I love you." And you're like, "No, no, that's not how love works. You want something."
Right.
And you see, and then I get really protective and I get the claws out.
But do you recognize that you're reacting to the past, not
Oh, of
the
course.
right, you
And I
recognize
mean,
it.
that the part of the work is not being able to blame the other person.
Yeah.
Like, as if anybody wins a breakup, or like the
Right.
end of a nice 2 months with somebody.
Right.
You don't win that. Nobody wins. Like, you don't even blame each other. It fucking sucks. Welcome to loss. Here's some more pain. You know. uh
Yeah. And I think that the the best thing we can do for ourselves is to be there for ourselves in the way that someone wasn't there for us. And nobody does this. We are so hard on ourselves. We're so hard on ourselves. We would never invite anyone into our lives who spoke to us the way that we speak to ourselves. And that's because we're replaying those old familiar dynamics.
yeah, that's actually a really good point. It's a really good point, because I thought about it. Some of the things that my mother did to me growing up, I was like, "Oh, I'd never talk to that person again." And then I hear the voice in my nervous system,
Yeah, it
and
lives
I'm like,
there.
"Oh shit, okay, never mind. That doesn't solve anything, does it?"
Right. But you can push back against it. That's what people don't realize. People think that like all the thoughts in their head are just the truth. Like that's what my head
Yeah,
is telling
I don't
me.
think thoughts are actually that compelling. Thoughts are actually very, very superficial.
Right.
They're really easy to bypass and change, which is also part of like why I don't like old people. They think like Tony Robbins, and Tony
Yeah.
Robbins is extraordinary.
Yeah, I love him.
But big fat but your generational gap is way too big.
Yeah.
Emotions are not used as a way to manifest things.
Right.
Emotions need to be rooted in a state of being.
Yeah.
Because if not, you're utilizing your humanity as a form of leverage. Like, okay, 1 second. That's a really dangerous belief to have, because it's inherently utilitarian. And to think that that's not going to screw you over in
Right.
your intimate relationships based off certain things you like to feel, then I think that that kind of way of thinking has poisoned people's understanding with what they look to connect with. I think connection is a much deeper aspiration. And to have these beliefs about emotions being bad, or sadness being bad, or loss being bad, is exactly what makes people so disconnected, that wear the mask out there like psychotic manipulators,
Yeah.
which is what you're doing. And whether a conscious level or a non-conscious level, that creates a lot of this emotional warfare between men and women.
Yes.
And
Emotional warfare. Exactly. That's where
it
we're at.
hurts.
Yeah.
Like, it is hailing glass. That's what it's like to date.
Yeah.
And so you have to be willing to take this commitment to the deepest possible level,
Right.
deepest possible level. And I think that's usually developmental.
Yeah.
That's the deepest level. That's like where you're interacting with it, with a mystery of life, of like, that's where the how questions come in. That's where the deep beliefs of like, why would I ever forgive somebody? Like, great question to ask. Like, okay, let's just say I open my heart. Is there a guarantee I'll meet a partner?
Mhm.
No. And it's like, well, then why would I? Right? Great question, right? You see, ask these like really powerful beliefs. And I think compassion as something that I've realized is universally neglected and not something that's fully understood. I think it's weaponized as a form of altruism. And I fucking hate that shit.
Passion is weaponized as a form of altruism.
It's
Okay.
like
Who's weaponizing it?
it's
Men.
this is, right? It's like, oh, please don't ever do that again. Or
Okay.
how about this? When people have to put themselves into the third person to be there for somebody.
Like what? Give an example.
It's part of, a lot of women do it.
Uh-huh.
It's where they think they're being compassionate and understanding, but really they're not actually in the room with the person they're being compassionate and understanding about. They have to kind of channel this coach or this therapist.
Right.
Because being there for somebody means feeling what that person is feeling with them, and also simultaneously being able to separate it from them. It's not the enmeshment of like, I need to feel what they're feeling to be close. And you're like, I hope I have a compelling cry.
Right.
No, but like you could genuinely feel for them. And you could feel for somebody when you don't seek to solve them.
Right.
And I noticed that compassion now, in the modern sense, is disconnected from a fundamental truth about mankind, which is that God made us in His image. There's nothing to solve.
Right.
I want to give you the space to choose who you want to be,
Yeah.
and that's really scary sometimes.
Absolutely.
Because really, I'm going to be tested about what I believe about mankind.
Right.
And I think what we inherently believe about mankind, and I think this is universal, myself included, is that mankind is weak. Compassion is terrifying because it's confirming that potentially we don't need to scare ourselves into greatness. Love is the seed that allows a person to become great.
Yeah.
And compassion gives space for that. And that's terrifying because you're like, oh, what if I don't fucking tell him what to do? He'll get fat. Oh, so you scream at him? That works? How's that working out for you?
Right.
And I think in more cases than ever, we need more compassion, because what I'm recognizing is that just with even understanding, which is not even the full compassion, it's a step, I'm finding myself far less reactive.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, I get it. I knew that you would feel that way. I
Right.
get it. And I'm not explaining myself every 5 seconds. You see, I'm off the back foot anymore.
Right.
Because that's the whole thing. What's wrong with me is convenient. What if nothing's wrong with you? That's actually scary, because then you can't control other people,
Right.
not even yourself in relationship to it.
And if nothing's wrong with you, then there's nothing else to blame. Like, it's very easy to default to, well, I can't find love because of my weight, or because all men are jerks, or because I'm too broken, I'm too this. Like, if you remove, sometimes we like hold on to the parts of us that we don't want, things that we don't want to be, because at least it keeps us safe. It keeps us safe in knowing, okay, well, this is the reason that things aren't working out for me. But what if you did something about that reason and things still aren't working out? Well, then what am I going to blame?
Mm-hmm.
Then what am I going to look at? And that's a very hard thing to reconcile.
That's again the vulnerability component, right?
Yeah.
Which is, okay, if I'm genuinely doing my best, and I think that's a real question you should ask yourself if you are, and you'll know if you are.
Yeah.
And it's like you're pushed to the point of exasperation, like you have to surrender. That's how you know you're doing your best. Like there's nothing outside of any of these behaviors right now that will be constructive. You've done your best. Everything else from here on out is completely destructive. And well, it's actually funny because I found myself completely stray from what you were saying. Well, could you remind me what you were just saying before I went there?
How we blame like external factors, things about ourselves.
That conversation. I think it's very, very difficult to be in a space to where you can see how deeply the control runs because of how deeply the wound goes. And it's like this deep insecurity creates such a deep need for control.
Right.
And what's really interesting is that like connecting with a vulnerability is experiencing the emotions around it. Like when you're hit with that, you are elevating your consciousness, because am I going to use my charm as a way to get the love that I need, or is it going to be something I have, right? And so you see the difference of it is like a person will be shaped by their traumas. It might even shape your career. I actually think I picked being a psychologist or a coach or whatever you want to call it as a way to not be depressed.
You 100% did. Yeah. That's what
That was my greatest fear.
Yeah.
It was what I was told always not to be.
Yeah.
It is what my mother was. And it's when she was there, it was bad. Don't go there.
Yeah.
And man, when the maternal line experiences struggle, you start to associate everything that removes her from her ability to love as a fucking problem. And then even anything that's enforced by the maternal that was used as a form of a protection means that you're not loved unless you adopt that. And remember, this happens with people in relationship to God, as it shapes their conceptualization of Him. And then He becomes incredibly tyrannical. And I think that it's interesting for men and women is that typically the women that have a really hard time with their emotions typically pick the more tyrannical types for men, because they'll create a nice golden castle for you. You won't ever have to express yourself because you yourself are too afraid of what that means for you, and so is he. So your guys' dysfunctions feed each other,
Yeah.
and you experience your glorified fires of hell together.
Yeah.
And it's comfortable there. You like the heat.
And that's always what's going to happen. Like what you just said about what is it? They glorify your dysfunctions.
Yeah.
You're always going to subconsciously seek out people that feel familiar. And if what is familiar to you is chaos and dysfunction, then that's what you're going to be drawn to, unless you do this scary deep work of looking at your wounds and your trauma and your inner child and all the areas in which you were deeply hurt as a child.
Mhm.
And if you don't do that, you're just going to keep finding yourself in the same situations over and over again, replaying the same dynamics, hoping for a different outcome.
You know, I've noticed the whole thing about what exactly makes a dysfunction
Mhm.
is a control mechanism or a philosophy or belief in front of a real emotion. And what I mean by that is that like you can have something that, let's just say somebody who lost their parents at a young age, or their parents divorced and they were the oldest brother and they had to be there for the rest of the family. Their likelihood of suppressing all of those emotions is actually not even being an option for them. Will actually create their persona, and their persona will actually manifest itself into a classically conventional masculine. But if you start looking at their intimate relationships, you will start seeing that it will go to the furthest extreme as a way to get your attention, which means that you're deeply disconnected from this part of you. And you might even go like, why does it take this much of a reaction to elicit a babe, what are you doing? Isn't that fascinating?
Right.
That like a very disconnected man has to experience the largest extremes to get that attention from women. And I'm not trying to say to validate the behavior, like you could learn to open up, but communication is predicated based off of your emotional mouth, not this one. So what you're willing to express emotionally is what you're willing to feel. And what you're willing to feel is how you're willing to connect.
Yeah.
So if that's not there, fucking dude, you're going to have to resort to gunfire to go, babe, what was that? Want my attention, right? Or she has to wear the most provocative outfit on planet Earth for you to go, I don't like that. Right? But she's clearly in pain. She's suffering. She's looking to those, right? And so you see how interesting this is? So look, you take that young boy, he grows up, everybody likes this. Why is that societally something we look up to? Well, because in a lot of ways, if you really look at a real story is that guy who eventually learned to go deeper within himself. That's like the conventional 21st century hero's arc, right? If he doesn't, he just becomes that thing cyclically. He never revolves. And by the way, where there's no evolution is a deeply sad story. It's a deeply sad story.
Yeah.
And so the evolution of that masculine is the integration of the feminine. So that would be the incorporation of all of the things he never allowed himself to experience. Because what happens is not that he changes in the way that you think he does. He has to follow this line all the way down to something that kind of inherently has like a wound. It's like a gap. And in that, there's going to be fear, there's going to be hatred, there's going to be pain. And that's been running your life, your whole life. And to think that an intimate relationship is not going to bring you back there, and this is something that I notice, it's like you either have an intimate relationship with somebody who's just as committed to address it, or somebody who's as committed to make sure that you never will.
Wow.
So when you go there, you plant the seed of love. And it's very difficult to plant that seed of love because in a lot of ways, it's like, oh, wait, like it almost feels like your autonomy is removed from you. Like this whole wound shaped my life. Like fucking, do I even believe in God? Right? Like real question, is this not just one big mask to protect myself from this one thing that's there and like this worked and I got me this far? What makes me real? And it's like, well, when you're willing to go all the way back down, I think the Pinocchio story does a great job of that. Like the belly of the whale, save your father, right? It's inherently changing the fundamental essence of what started this relationship, which is, are you willing to go for yourself to retrieve it from the depths of hell? And that's the choice that you're willing to make. I think that choice is love.
Yeah.
And that's what transforms the person to where they could look at the trauma and go, for this, I bless you because you've made me the man I am. And now I bless you. What? You're familiar with the biblical stories, yeah?
Yeah.
And so, like, I've been lately interacting with this deep maternal wound, and it's like, what the fuck is forgiveness? Like, what is it? Just like, I forgive him. And you like, write it down. Do you feel like you do? No, then you didn't. Why do you need to?
Why do you need to what? Forgive?
Why do you need to forgive? Yeah.
I think that forgiveness becomes essential when it's hurting you, staying angry. And I think that it has nothing to do with the other person. You forgive to set yourself free. It's not like
You let go to set yourself free.
Yeah, let go or detach, which is the theme of my life right now with my book.
Tell me
Detach.
about that.
I think that forgiveness, look, we have a choice. For those of us who had very difficult childhoods, for those of us who have been in relationships with horrible people in the past, you have every right to be mad and to stay mad. You want to stay mad? You want to cry about this the rest of your life? Okay, we'll cry with you. Like, it's hard. But is that giving you the life that you want?
That I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Don't take this the wrong way, but I feel like that whole paradigm is the lack of compassion when you need to see yourself the most. It's like, if I rejected the one thing that's intrinsically true about you the most, to think that that wouldn't create a deep hatred for the person that did that would be, by the way, it would be undermining.
Wait, who's rejecting who?
Well, I'm just trying to say,
okay.
It doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
That the person is irrelevant to the thing that you're experiencing sometimes. And the person becomes relevant when they're consistent in your life. Now, if that person is you, it's a whole different conversation.
Yeah.
But I think this is what I was trying to say. It's like, what are you going to be mad your whole life?
Right.
I think that already is revealing of the lack of compassion in relationship to what emotions really get us closer to. And don't take this the wrong way. I feel like it's a fundamental belief that you have about emotions, that they could be consuming. Not what you call
that definitely is a fundamental belief. But I think that in terms of compassion, I think that we all need to have more compassion for ourselves. Absolutely. In terms of letting go of the anger we feel, for example, towards our parents, it's very hard to have self-esteem when you're still holding on to anger from your childhood. And not to say that it didn't happen and to deny the experience. It happened. But I'm choosing to not let this define me as a person anymore.
Yeah, we can't cognitively bypass that, which is what I'm trying to say.
You cannot. You have to absolutely feel your emotions and process them
emotionally.
Yes, you absolutely. There's no way around it. And I'm someone that like hates feeling difficult emotions, and I had to do that process as well, and it was excruciating. And for me, what's very therapeutic is journaling. That really helps me process my emotions in a way that feels
Journaling
most productive.
All my clients journal. Everybody,
yes,
even in my
it's
community.
so. I mean, before there was the existence of therapists, like that's what people did. They journaled. Like that it was the same thing. So I think that you have to move through that, but there has to come a point where you release that anger. Especially, look, it doesn't have to come a point, but if you're at a phase, and I was at this phase for a while where the people that I was angry at, it was having a negative toll on me. And I realized I have to just let this go. I let this go.
That's what I was trying to say, is that you will do what's right for yourself. I think when we are afraid of the feelings we have in relationship to the people that hurt us, we never transform them.
Yes.
The choice is the transformation. The repression is very, very different. By the way, for people that are in their heads, you won't be able to tell the difference because they look exactly the same.
The way you just put that was perfect. The transformation is in the choice. And I say this all the time.
Real choice.
It's pretty much my answer to every single question that I get these days. How do I get over my ex? You choose that you choose it. You choose, you decide, I am ready to be done with this. How do I become somebody who values herself? The first step, obviously that's not the only step. It's not as simple as you choose it.
The choice isn't this. It's not like I choose this or this.
Your choice is actions. It's the decision and the choice, and then it has to be followed up by actions. Like you decide, you make the choice, I want to be done. I don't want to be obsessing over this person anymore. And then you back it up with actions. I'm not going to stalk their social media anymore. I'm not going to write them any more love letters. I'm not going to keep showing up in areas where I think that they're going to be. First, you have to decide I'm ready to be done. Now, why is that hard for a lot of people? Because they're not ready to they're not ready to let go of certain things. Some people aren't ready to let go of being angry at their parents. They're not ready to let go of pining for their
but that's part of doing the work, is getting you into a place when you're ready to let go.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's exactly what real transformation would quantify. Like,
for sure.
You can't rush the letting go process.
Not at all. I have a client that I'm working with who is in a relationship with a married man, and she knows this is not a good idea. This is not healthy. This is not good for any of us. She's not ready to let it go yet. And I'm not going to say to her like, okay, I'm not, there's nothing I can do for you yet. Like, I'm working with her to get to a place where she is ready. And when she realizes she's worth so much more than this, you are worth a man committing to you and only you. You are worth going out in public on dates with the person that you're with. I know all of this, and on some level she knows this, but emotionally she's not there yet. Emotionally.
That's what I was trying to say, that,
Yeah.
that the disembodied consciousness is not full consciousness. It's
Right.
protective consciousness. So it's still a survival mechanism.
Yeah.
And it could get advanced, and sometimes it's compelling. But if you're an intuitive person, you're like, buddy, you're boring me. And if you're boring me, you're not real.
Right.
Because even people I dislike, they don't bore me. You have to remember that. Like, it's
Right.
very difficult to be a boring human being. To dislike somebody, I
Yeah.
mean, there's something interesting about them. Clearly, I
Yeah.
have an emotion in relationship to them. But
Yeah.
I've been noticing this to be not something I hold myself to as like the superior judge of other people's character, but
Right.
just genuinely as like, it's suspicious to me that there's a lot of getting away, and you don't want to get away. Like, is that why you're here? Is that why you're listening to this? Like, or do you want to get closer to it? And the beautiful part is there's actually people who are crazy enough to extend this to other people.
Right.
Like, I didn't realize that until I started doing this for a few years. Like, you have to be, if you run the madhouse, you're crazier than everybody in it.
That makes a lot of sense. And our man, Carl Jung, you know what he says about the people that you dislike? It's normally because they're a reflection of things you dislike within yourself.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean they're boring. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
No, they're not boring. That's why they're not boring. Like the people that we dislike, it's because they're usually shining a mirror on something within us, either our values or things that we don't like about ourselves.
You know, I usually challenge that now at this point, because I recognize that like it's a very, very superficial understanding of getting people to start reflecting with the external world. But when even you start utilizing the external world as a way to reflect when you are reflecting, you're inherently narcissistically projecting onto people you would like to be with.
I need you to say all of that again.
It's very simple. What I'm trying to say is that it works for a little. It's
Yeah.
not actually true.
What works for a little?
We reflect one another.
Yeah.
And I think there's a difference between mirroring and reflecting.
Absolutely.
But when a person is so removed from their internal world, they have to go, everything around me is a mirror. That's a small step to get somebody to go like this, okay? Now, that's good, because then that means that your behaviors are something you should pay attention to. Now, that's the beginning of a person becoming an individual. By the way, I believe achieving success. And success in the truest sense. This is not your, Instagram going viral or, making your $1 million. I really mean success, because success removed from that, eventually now we have the societal definition, which is quite reductive. So if you like that, continue doing that. But this is about recognizing there's levels of consciousness in relationship to it. And I noticed that it's actually stumped me to actually look at other people as a mirror. Because in fact, it's not that I've removed myself from them. No, that's not the case. I'm not removing myself from them. But I'm able to recognize my behaviors and how it affects them. And when a person becomes self-obsessed, that's usually when that's when they're actually removed from the person in front of them.
Oh, I agree.
So you see how that eventually becomes a problem?
I do think it's absolutely a problem to over-pathologize yourself and to constantly be living in the world of like, what is everybody else saying about me? So yeah, that I absolutely agree with you on. And I don't think that it's worth it to go like so deeply into that. Like, oh, what am I reacting to in this person? What am I reacting to in this person? I do think
You'd be
that
shocked. A lot of the people that have done a lot of the work, which means that they've went to take ayahuasca, or they've done psychedelics for one time in their life, or they've done basic therapy. Like, that's not this. It's not. It's really not.
Yeah.
This is active. You're going to be active in your life.
Right.
And that's kind of frightening, just even saying that. And you're going to learn how to be passive, and that's active.
Right.
So it's a lot of...
It's hard. Most of us are just living our lives on automatic pilot. And most people don't realize that our brains aren't wired to make us happy. They're wired to keep us safe. And what's safety? It's predictability. It's knowing what's going to happen next. So if I'm living the same way I've always lived, and I'm doing the same things, and I'm thinking the same thoughts, and I'm ascribing the same meanings to all the events, then that's predictable. And your brain loves that. Once you start challenging that, once you start doing things differently, you're going to face resistance. And most people, as soon as they face resistance, they're like, well, I must be on the wrong track. Like, I must be doing something
very
I'm
well
not supposed
said.
to.
Yeah, as soon as they start feeling sad, they're like, I did something wrong.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
No, this is everything right.
Exactly. And so that's where people get stuck, and that's where it stops. They feel like this doesn't feel right. I'm supposed to go with what my emotions are telling me. But no, just because you're facing resistance doesn't mean that you're on the wrong path. If you want to grow, you have to be just uncomfortable. That's what I've learned. There is no comfort in your growth zone, and there is no growth in your comfort zone. So if you want to grow, you're going to be uncomfortable. Deal with it. Like, maybe that wasn't such a compassionate way to say it. We talk so much about compassion.
Yeah, that just keeps coming up for me. I can't unsee
it's
it anymore.
uncomfortable. And so I always tell my clients, get comfortable in the discomfort. Find a comfort. It's the same as going to the gym and getting in shape. If you've gone a long time without exercising and you go to the gym, there is no part of you that wants to be there.
You know what's so funny? I can hear the way you're speaking right now, and it's not you.
What?
Don't take that the wrong way.
Okay.
It's what I mean by that is it's like, what are you trying to say?
What am I trying to say?
Yeah, what are you trying to say? Like, what are you really trying to say?
What am I trying to say right now? What we're talking about is
Because it's just something I picked up of it was like an underlying fear.
a fear.
Yeah, a fear. Because like it is deeply terrifying. It's just, it's like that's an emotion, fear.
Yes.
It's probably the most relevant emotion I experience in my life.
It's, I think, the most dominant emotion that most of us
And
experience.
I can only imagine for women.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's nothing more terrifying than having children also. Like my fear when it comes to them is, it knows no bounds. It's
Yeah, no,
something.
so
It's a reckoning.
what I was noticing is that like what you really feel is afraid. And that's the thing about like whenever it's like the get back up on the horse spiel. I've heard
Yeah.
it before. I usually think when somebody tells you to get back up on the horse in relationship to what they feel they already told me their story about emotions. And it's also the same thing about with comfort zone. Like there was like a level of toughness that was incorporated into you that removed your heart from it. And it was all comfort zone makes people feel what? If they step out of it,
Uncomfortable.
terrified.
Scared. Yeah, of course.
You're stepping into the unknown.
Of
What's
course.
comfortable is what's known.
It's absolutely terrifying.
But yeah, what I'm saying is there's nothing wrong to be afraid.
No. Yeah.
I don't think you believe that.
I don't think that. I guess it depends on the context that we're talking about with the fear, but I absolutely acknowledge that fear is normal and natural and it's part of any process. I'm coming out with a book in a few weeks. Like that's terrifying. That's scary. It's exciting, but it's terrifying.
Yeah.
I choose not to focus on the scary part. I choose to focus on the exciting part. Having kids.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Being here right now, like this was scary.
Yeah, definitely. There's
Yeah.
a level of fear that's
Yeah.
makes you brave.
Yeah.
That makes you really brave. And that also makes you well spoken.
Thank you.
You remove yourself from your ability to do that when you don't allow yourself to feel fear.
Right.
And what I'm noticing here is a little bit of what your relationship is to emotions and the potential of them. I think you're familiar with that on a
Yeah.
cognitive level. Because what keeps coming to my mind was the thing that stuck with me the most, and it was about your relationship with your son.
Mm.
And what's interesting is that like I really, it's difficult to be exposed to that, especially through the masculine, because then it means it's unescapable. But it's also funny to me that it's like you're going to have to connect to it twice as deep. Because I think it's easier for a father to connect with a son and a
Yeah.
mother to connect with a daughter,
Yeah.
right?
My
But to
daughter's
see
very
yourself the
emotional too.
most,
Yeah.
but you don't say anything about her. She's great, right?
Oh, no, she's the best, but she's also very emotionally volatile.
Well, but she
She-
wasn't the first thing that came up. And of course, to
Yeah.
say that this isn't going to exist across all your children,
Sure.
of course it will. But I think that when it came through the opposite sex, it became confirmed that it's reality. It's not just something women experience,
Right.
which means that it's collective. And then to think, how am I going to help a man work through
Right.
that as a woman? Even more fear.
Right.
What I've noticed is when most kids are emotionally dysregulated, it has a lot to do with a maternal disconnect.
Oh, for sure. And this goes back to what we were talking about earlier, which is when certain kids make you feel like a failure. I feel like because of my experiences, especially my relationship with my emotions, when that child in particular is having a hard time managing his emotions, I'm like, oh my God, I did this, I failed. And then that creates these feelings of guilt, of shame, of,
What if you could feel those guilt, feel that guilt and
I
shame?
definitely feel it. It's painful, very painful.
Yeah,
And
that's the thing with it, painful. I
Right.
like that you said painful.
Yeah.
Because it transformed really quick from guilt, shame, pain.
Right.
Pain's not guilt or shame.
Right.
It's pain.
Yeah.
Let's go, Sabrina. That's, by the way, that's fucking huge. You
Yeah.
understand that you can actually admit that it's painful.
Of course it's painful. It's painful when you
There's
see
loss.
your trauma reflected in your kids because it's the
Yes.
last thing that you want for them.
There's loss, but you
Yeah.
have the consciousness to change that.
Yes. And that's what's so healing about having children. Like part of what's so, like, especially if you had a difficult childhood, having this chance to kind of like do it right. But like every kid needs different things. So maybe the things you needed as a kid, it doesn't register.
No, I'm
for
just
them.
talking to you as a mother.
Yeah.
We don't have your children here. They're your children. They will forever be on the different end of that exchange. You
Yeah.
will inherently have to accept that you will forever give to them.
Yeah.
They will give you nothing in return.
I know.
That's a healthy place to start with children.
Yeah.
And I think most parents are looking for something from their kids because of the lack of emotional needs they had, whether it's even
Yeah.
validation for their sensitivity. And that's dangerous because then eventually you start to almost leverage your needs against them and then try to create these new relationships, which is like coach, therapist
Yeah.
thingy. Somebody is going to adopt that. And then it's like their way to get the needs they never got. But it's as they never are. So they still feel fundamentally ashamed. And now
Yeah.
they're enmeshed with you. And then there goes their fucking intimate relationships. And I think you really become aware of what you could do as a woman, especially your own children, especially men, when you are the mother and they are the son. It
Mm.
really changes your story about your self-worth. And I think
Yeah.
that you're healing a very, very deep wound.
Yeah.
And to think that that wound is not coming up in relationship to maybe potentially you not having any availability to experience loss.
Right.
And that's a difficult thing to do because it feels like a problem sometimes. And if it didn't feel like a problem, I'd say there's something wrong with you. Because that's natural for it to feel that way, but it's not reflective of reality. Remember, it's a feeling. And that feeling could sometimes feel like it's real. But you have to be able to establish what you feel. And then sometimes it's in relationship to reality. Most of the time it is, but sometimes it's not.
Right.
And it's hard to be able to separate that. But I feel like if this wasn't happening for you at this point in your life, then it wouldn't be the reason why you wrote this book.
Right.
You're like trying to experience that emotionally, and it's a very different experience.
Yeah.
Because I think you're aware of like, oh, this could go real bad. This could look even worse than I did when I was younger. And it's just bringing you closer back to your childhood.
Right.
And I think it's about recognizing the level of what are the real emotions in relationship to that wound, right? And it's
Yeah.
like it's pain, and it's not. I think where there's pain, there's loss.
Yeah.
There's loss,
Absolutely.
and where there's loss, and that's the crazy part. There's love.
Mhm.
But it's you actually learning to give yourself that. I noticed that the ability to experience loss is learning how to love yourself. I hate loss. I fucking, God damn it, like,
Yeah.
please, 1 minute, let me find a way to resurrect the dead. I'll be Dr. Frankenstein before I accept that this is gone,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking about it too, which is like, I've had to reject my sensitivity even to the point where like, I've confirmed a reality about it. I've made a projection about who I am. I'm Superman or whatever it is, and he doesn't. He could feel anything or everything all at once.
Right.
But ultimately, it's really hard to be seen with this part of yourself when you've had to hide it for so long. Like
Right.
you've also created your own relationship with it on top of it. And this is why I think compassion is the most important, because when somebody loses a loved one, what's the one thing you give them?
Compassion.
Yeah, and you're there for them.
Yeah.
And I notice that it's very difficult, and this is where the overbearing mother comes in. And I think it's more typical for Jewish mothers because it shows up in their intimate relationships with their sons as they can't let them go.
Yeah, that's like the
Isn't that interesting?
stereotype. Yeah.
And it's a stereotype for a reason because it's true. And it's not true for all, but it's generally true. And yeah, of course, it affects their intimate relationships. And there's so many. There's Freud's relationship with his mother. It's like this whole work's about that. Fucking, I'm sounding like Freud.
Yeah.
But I'm recognizing the much larger picture in relationship to it because I think it really starts changing the way by which we seek love and how we understand love, and eventually we can connect to it on an existential level, and that's intrinsic. You intrinsically connect to something existentially. And then you're like, thank you for this wound because I'm me and I love the person that I am. But you can't get to that. You can't fucking mentally skip to that. And I'm noticing way too many people do that. Like,
Yeah.
please don't be real. That these emotions around these things make you deeply angry. When you see your children become emotionally dysregulated, you become deeply frustrated and you
Yeah.
fundamentally feel like there's something to solve. And then you're like, well, I'm going to fucking scream this one out of you. I'll get you out of the car until you start realizing you're being dramatic.
Mhm.
And of course, it's hard to help children regulate because they're children.
Right.
They need parents that could do it.
Exactly. Exactly. And that is the core, going back to where we started with this, with the mother wound, is a lot of mothers who just could not regulate themselves. Their emotions get completely dysregulated by their children and make it the child's fault. And the child internalizes, I'm no good. I'm bad. I'm unlovable. And then once you internalize that unlovable wound, it's a hard road. It's a hard road to undo it. It's absolutely possible, and this is the work that I do, but then you end up in a cycle where you are dating people who affirm the way you already feel about yourself, and it usually starts there.
Isn't that really powerful? Like people don't date the person that they ideally want to be with. They
Yeah.
date the one that conforms to their internal perception of
A
themselves.
Absolutely, the subconscious mind always has to prove itself right, and
That's
we're gonna
interesting.
keep doing that over and over again and keep reliving those patterns, and it's going to feel weird. It's gonna give you the ick when you date someone who's emotionally healthy and just wants to.
That's also what I found is really interesting. That like you will be repulsed by a truthful man if you
Yeah,
haven't realized you've signed up for a life of lies that conforms to your insecurities.
absolutely.
And then it's like, well, if they're telling you the truth and you have a problem with it, I'm sorry to break it to you, you're the problem.
Yeah.
It was one last thing, because I recognize that there's something interesting, because we're talking about the maternal wound. And as a guy who does this work, I find that it's a lot of problems aren't actually problems. They're just because you feel like they're a problem. It's okay. Like, you feel sad, that's okay. You
Yeah.
feel the loss, that's okay. You're angry, that's okay.
Yeah.
You're lost, that's okay.
Yeah.
There's an underlying comfort that a man needs to be exposed to intrinsically know that he is enough, and that's given by the mother.
Mhm.
And there's something about the comfort that allows him to know that he's given the choice to go out and investigate life. He's
Yes.
given that choice. You know that the overbearing mother takes that choice away,
Right.
because it's a deep anxiety about wanting to. It's a fear of loss. And if you ever watch Star Wars, right?
I think my husband made me watch it when we started dating,
And
and
did you fall asleep? And he still got married to you?
I stayed awake, but it wasn't resonating with
Of
me.
course, it's for boys.
I
But
know.
anyways,
I like Yoda's one-liners. Those were fun.
well, it's one of Yoda's one-liners, and it was,
Oh, I like him a lot.
the path to the dark side is the fear of loss.
Oh, yes, Yoda and the one-liners, the
Yeah, right.
best.
Fucking
Yeah.
old Jewish man. It's so there's this. Yeah, the line is really talking about this fear of loss. The overbearing mother is created by this fear of loss.
Mhm.
And that fear of loss is generally due to the experience of loss that you're experiencing now unconsciously. And so you could say that the fear is the fear of the feelings, because anything that you typically fear is something you are experiencing,
Right.
right? And it maybe have been brought to your attention through your experiences, but that didn't mean that it didn't exist before. So
Right.
maybe the path of your life is being paved through these traumas. And so connecting to your purpose means that you could eventually connect to a partner that shares the collective purpose, and it will not be tyranny, it'll be freedom. You can have the best relationship in the world. If there's no purpose in it, it's hell. And I
Yes.
think most people don't know that until they experience it.
Yeah.
And so the last note I'll end it on is that love is very hard to give yourself. And I promise you, if you haven't given it to yourself, you haven't given it to your kids.
Mhm.
I'm not saying that to you as a criticism. I'm saying it to you as an observation,
Yeah.
which is it's clearly being tested.
Yes.
Children that are like the, quote, parts of yourself that you perceivably understand to be variables of success. Great job, honey. You're so great. I'm inspired by you. Everything that you've rejected about yourself that potentially means, failure. It's really just what you can't understand or what you refuse to have compassion for. And so what I was able to notice is that there's a certain point where you can embody that for yourself, and it's deeply terrifying, because there's this illusion that you can control your children to be the thing you want them to be, like as if that's why they're here.
Right.
So it's an ultimate surrender of the thing you love most. That's the Abrahamic stories that people have removed from their foundation.
Yeah.
So, you're willing to let your children live their life. That means you're willing to surrender them back. And
Yeah.
that's the hardest struggle for a woman, to let go of control of her children.
Right.
Because then maybe you'll actually be there as a mother. You won't poison them.
And look, I mean, I'm fully humbled by the process of motherhood and all it entails. And I know that all I can do is I make mistakes and learn from them and just like honestly do my actual best. I know that like people always say that, but I'm so conscious of all of these things and how to really help my kids learn to emotionally regulate and feel good about who they are as individuals because they're all
What
so different.
if, as a female psychologist, Jewish mother,
Yeah.
you took all of that psychology, crumpled it up, threw it into a ball, and threw it out the window?
Okay.
And then after you did, and you watched it actually go into a rocket ship into space and disintegrate in the atmosphere,
Okay, well, we're really getting rid of it. Okay.
what would you be left with that you can give your children that every woman has and every man has?
Love and compassion. Compassion.
That's all they ever needed.
Acceptance. That's all they
That's
need.
all they ever needed.
Absolutely.
And all the psychology stuff just gets in the way of what we intrinsically have.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it's more the psychology stuff is more helpful in regulating yourself because they're always going to mirror back like how you're feeling internally.
No, you already have that. That's what
Yeah,
I'm trying
exactly.
to say. That, like,
Right.
I had to notice that there's a deeply sobering effect of being able to reintegrate myself back into life after years and years of hypervigilance, analysis, and party tricks with my psychology. Like, that's as if what I really wanted. I want to be alive. I want to live.
Yeah.
I want to be Matthew McConaughey. That sounds rich.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sabrina, it's been an absolute pleasure.
This has been great. Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. Your sensitivity is your gift. And really felt that that was the most interesting part of today's conversation. That I think that's for everybody, like learning how to understand the evolution of mankind as we're becoming more sensitive and we're actually returning to our truth, which is sensitivity.
Yes.
It's not overbearing, it's reality.
Absolutely. Your brain works at such a high level.
Thank you so much.
It was a real exercise here keeping up. But this was great. I really, really enjoyed this.
All
Yes,
right. Well,
amazing.
all the best. Hope to see you soon.
All right, amazing. Thank you.